Hi, I'm Brian DeForest, coming to you once again from the great Pacific Northwest, Salem, the capital of Oregon. We're excited about today's topic as we join DeAngela Burns-Wallace. She comes to us from the heartland of America, the great state of Kansas. Today we're going to talk about digital government, its augmentation, and its automation as we transform into a post-COVID world and the way we deliver our services to our constituents. Take care and enjoy.
Thanks, Brian. So we are sitting in the middle of Topeka, Kansas with Secretary DeAngela Burns-Wallace. Couldn't be more excited to jump into a conversation about digitization, about technology in state government, and ultimately about how we move our governments forward to do best by the people we serve. DeAngela, thanks for hanging out.
Well, glad to host you here in the great state of Kansas.
So you're a native Kansas City area?
Born and raised in the Kansas City area.
All right, so born and raised, so you're home.
I am.
But you left, you went to Stanford, you were a foreign service officer, you spent a fair amount of time in academia, and you're back working in state government in the area from which you came. How'd that happen? How'd you get back here?
Well, it's really interesting. My career path has been about public service. And so no matter whether I was in, federal government or higher education and now state government, the theme has been public policy and being in roles that impact communities, that make a difference, and really in administrative and management roles throughout, just with different areas of content. Yeah. My foreign service career, I was a management officer, or they're called a GSO. So I, ran embassies and consulates around the world, doing procurement and HR and budget and finance and motor pool and contracting. It's what I did. It's what I was trained on to do in embassies in China and South Africa, and worked on the Hill. And then I moved into higher education, and while I did enrollment management and undergraduate education as a senior leader in a higher ed institution, you really are managing resources and policy, right? Not necessarily working day to day with students, but managing the people, managing the policies, the procedures, putting structures in place. And a lot of my work in higher education was about access, opportunity, retention, and success. And that's a lot of what my work continues to be. So I say, I sit in this seat and I look at the Capitol and think about the call that I got from the governor's office to join their team. I wasn't thinking about it. It wasn't on my radar. My name was passed to them by a colleague and good friend, unbeknownst to me, because he, like them, understood the holistic nature of my background. So taking the work that I did for the State Department and putting that with the work that I did in higher education, I think uniquely positioned me to sit in the roles that I do for the state as Secretary of Administration and the Chief Information Technology Officer. It didn't look at one aspect of my background and just see me through a higher ed lens, but really saw me through a lens of being able to manage and marshal resources, people, places, things. And that's what we do.
So Secretary of the Department of Administration for the state of Kansas and Chief Information Officer, is that a unique position for you? How'd you end up wearing both hats?
So here in Kansas, they are two separate cabinet seats. Secretary of Administration is Senate confirmed, of course, but the Chief Information Technology Officer is an appointment by the governor. Gotcha. So when I came in, I was just Secretary of Administration, and at about probably 6 weeks into my role, the governor decided to make changes with our IT operation, and it lines up with my background, and I've done it in various environments, and asked me to step in as that agency was one at the time that was really going through tough times, lack of confidence, and the work that was happening there just really had been banged around for years and undervalued and underappreciated, and was asked to step in to really, turn it around. And what I found was I didn't have to turn it around. We just had to dust off what was going on. We had to show the value and the impact that our IT operation was really having, and the return was happening on the investment. But there was also a number of years where there was a lack of investment, and we understand that across all of our administrative areas. And we have changed the conversation and the dialogue around we must invest in these areas and these spaces if we are going to continue to serve our citizens, if we're going to continue to do the work that we need to do for Kansans. And that investment is going to continue to show a return, and we've been able to change that conversation.
Yeah. So I want to talk about Kansas, but you and I have had a couple diversity conversations.
We have.
And so I want to tie diversity into the convo. We've talked about why diversity in state government is so important. And you've got an experience coming from not just academia, but Stanford, like the creme de la creme of innovation and entrepreneurship and technology and pushing the envelope forward. How does that experience translate to what you bring to the table here to help dust off, help make investments? Like, being in that area, translating to this area, it's all interrelated, and it seems like it puts you in a unique position to do your job incredibly well.
Well, you know, when I talk about my Stanford experience, and I have been a dedicated Stanford volunteer for years because I believe in the experience, and have the pleasure to have joined the Board of Trustees of Stanford last summer.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I say that and I share that because I sit in these roles because I believe in the work that happens in those spaces. And so what Stanford did in the way that they approach education is all things are possible. And you're a thinker, and you're a doer, and you are an imaginer, and you're a visionary. And that doesn't come with a title or a time in service. It's day one, right? And so, you know, I was talking with a colleague, and actually my dad the other night, and I was saying, you know, sometimes I sit on panels and they'll say, well, tell us about, you know, how you struggled and decided and made those decisions and sometimes I have to hesitate because I'm like, I'll figure it out, right? I mean, that's how I feel, because I'm like, if you can come into a situation and you can assess, if you can bring perspective, if you can bring voice, if you can assess what's going on, I'm a puzzle solver, right? So I'm like, give me a puzzle, whatever that looks like. And that's what Stanford taught us. It was about reimagining, re-envisioning yourself to match on what the needs are, what the issues are. And you use every resource, every experience, every network you have to be able to solve that problem. And so it taught me more so how to think and how to navigate and how to problem solve. And so it doesn't matter the field. It doesn't matter the career. It actually doesn't even matter the issue. It matters how you approach it, how you leverage those resources. And that's the power that I think I carry with me from Stanford, and why I'm committed to that service, because the more leaders we train that way, the stronger we are, the better we are. And a part of my passion is, as you mentioned, you know, inclusive environments, diverse environments. I was that, you know, student who was a woman, you know, I'm Black, and I came from the Midwest. Like, so as much as I'm an anomaly coming back home with some of my experiences, like I was an anomaly leaving this place, and they were like, you from where, right? And so for every environment that I walk into, I want to say, do we have everybody around the table? Who's not here? Whose voice is missing? And how do we create space for that voice?
All right, so there's a couple threads that we're tying together now, right? You talked about empowerment and dusting off the the role of CIO and where that was heading, and we've talked about access and equity and making sure people are taken care of.
Yeah.
So as we think about digitization of government and automation of government, is that good for access and equity? Is that detrimental too? Like, talk to me about your philosophy of automation and digitization.
So, I think it's a two-sided answer, really, right? We look at digitalization of government to say we want to give more people access. We want to deliver the services that we know that every Kansas need at their fingertips, real time, to be able to be there and to meet their needs, whatever that looks like. But as we do this work, we have to ensure that there is an equity lens as a part of those conversations. So if we roll out a website and it requires is not mobile friendly, right? Well, when you start to move through communities, if you want to make sure you have access, that mobile access is key and critical, because we do know that a high percentage across all socioeconomic groups have the smartphone.
Yep.
Right? But the moment you move and you only make it accessible in a certain way, if you digitalize in a certain way and not think about who has to access, if we think about what type of information has to be available and who within our community and what information they have or may not have for various reasons, are we limiting the way that we're accessing? So it's an intentionality, right? I don't know that it's a good or a bad, but when we do the work, we have to bring multiple voices to the table and be intentional about how we develop it. And I'll tell you, a lot of times we have a tendency to think about how do we put this up and process it and make this go more efficiently. But sometimes what we forget is to ask about the customer experience, right?
Yep.
And so that might be great for your processing, but that's not how they engage with what we need them to have. So we have to start from the customer experience. And if you sit in the customer seat, equity will always be part of your conversation. You will create inclusive spaces because you're thinking about each customer and who is being serviced and what those stakeholders are and how you're benefiting them. How do they move through the experience?
Yeah.
If we start there and if we build our platforms and our experiences in that way, you will grab that inclusive space if we are intentional.
So take me a layer, maybe a step back from that as you think about the team composition to build the right product and do customer development appropriately and think through user or customer experience, right? Like you've got to have the right inputs. As we talk about computers, Mom's an engineer, right? So garbage in, garbage out, right? Like she's a Berkeley girl, so I don't know if that gets her in trouble or not, talking to the Stanford folks, but garbage in, garbage out, like you've got to have a quality team to grab all of the appropriate data to make the right decisions about how we build a product, how we roll that out, and ultimately who's getting value out of that. So how do you think about that team composition as you start at start?
So I think in state government, and I even saw it in federal government, we always start with a foundation of amazing, dedicated people who want to work, with government. Years, generations. I mean, I have long-standing staff who have been with state government and are committed deeply to the mission. You start there because they want to do the work and they're excited about doing the work and they're excited about delivery. But I think as we continue, particularly in this space of access and digitization, we have to also rely on partnerships, right? And so for me, I want to take the foundation of my staff that knows our states, that knows our citizens, that knows the history of the work that we have done, and I want to couple that with partners who are doing innovative and different things. I want to lean into my employees and say, what are you thinking and seeing? right? Everything can't come from the top. It has to come to and through because you're experiencing it. I want us to be reaching out to other states and saying, what are you doing? What have you learned? Like, I don't need to feel the hard parts of this.
Right.
Just tell me how to get there fast.
I don't need to
right?
rebuild the wheel, right?
So I think for me, I think about when you say team, I really mean team. I mean, one, piece of that team is my team, and the team that I built and the expertise that we bring to the table, both new and old, and pipelining new, particularly in our IT space, just looking for that new generation of IT professionals coming in. We're getting ready to launch an IT internship program, and we're trying to partner with our higher ed institutions and tech schools, all of that. But I also mean, who are my partners? And when I say partners, I call them partners and not vendors, because I want them to be partners in us doing this work and helping us think strategically through how do we deliver a transformative experience, not a transactional.
Okay.
Right?
All right.
Transformative experience in this space. I want my peers to be able to help inform me and shape, right? But I also want other stakeholders, whether it's the legislators, other agencies. How do you build a team that is giving you an understanding of what we're trying to deliver, what that experience looks like? And so you have to rely on multiple pieces of it. For me, I think the biggest part about this conversation is focusing on the why, right? And so being intentional and strategic in the why are we doing this? What are we trying to accomplish? How are we bettering an experience or an opportunity or an access to resources? How are we bettering lives in Kansas, right? For Kansans. And if we start there, then you start to figure out who needs to be at the table to help you reach that why, right? And being careful not to be driven by, the shiny toy, right? The new technology, we can do all these things for you, the mission creep, right? Because that is where I think we can get into trouble. When the technology itself is leading us, or the platforms are leading us, and we don't start with the why, we don't have a real business plan and understand what we're trying to deliver and why we're trying to deliver, then the technologies lead without the strategy. We do this work well when the strategy is defined, when we have an understanding of where we're going, and then we find the technologies that help us get there and enhance that journey.
So you beat me to the punch there, which is great. Like, we're heading in the same direction. I was gonna ask you to help me reconcile the historical context of a state. You mentioned the folks who have been here for a while, they know the state, they have this incredible compassion for the people they serve, also maybe entrenched in their positions a little bit, right? Sometimes, so you've got some dissonance there, and also you've got the young kids that you hire, the new IT professionals, you've got new technologies that pop up and can be incredibly helpful and perform well and shift the way that folks interact, transformative rather than transactional. I really like that framing. How do you reconcile the two? And it sounds like strategy drives that. That's how you figure out which one you're leaning toward. But talk me through the tactical of, we've got people who are slowing us down and we've got people who want to put the new widget in and it's shiny and it's interesting. How do we get to the right answer or a good answer?
And I think for me, it's about meshing. Right? And not as much reconciling.
Gotcha.
When an opportunity is created for our staff who maybe have been with the state for a very long time, what you find a lot of time in state government is that while they have been with the state and doing this work for a very long time, unfortunately, they haven't over the years actually been asked always their opinion. Right?
Wow.
What do you know and what have you seen? This is where we're road mapping to. Have we been here before?
Give me your expertise.
Yes. There's that moment of that conversation where my tech team is in the back of the room smirking because they're like, yeah, they did that about 6 years ago. That didn't work.
And we have the data to show why it didn't work, right?
But they aren't always given voice to say that. Oh, the leader says we're going in that direction. We know that's
try
not,
it again
may not
with
work.
it, yeah.
No, it's different. And sometimes we are going to try it again. But we got to give value to some of that history to say, now, walk me through why that didn't work.
Yeah.
We just did, an overall inventory. We were, really trying to understand like what our systems are and trying to then use the technology to make sure we're tracking on those assets and, leveraging into it so that we can build 3-year plans and be able to tie that back to, capital improvements and IT, just putting all the pieces together and trying to do some automation around that.
Yeah.
And someone said, yeah, they collected all this about 3-4 years ago. And I said, and where's that list? I don't know. Do you even have the one you submitted? I don't think so. Do you have a way to update it? No. So this time when we do it, I'm going to collect it again. I can't really apologize because I didn't do it before, so I'm not going to apologize for making you do it again.
Yep.
What I can promise you is that when you do it this time, we have the structure preset that this is going to feed into the system. That system is going to feed into our asset management system. We're going to use that as part of our 3-year strategic planning to talk about where we're going based on the legacy systems and modernizations that needs to happen. I can't correct the past, but I can leverage in to tell you how we're going to use it going forward. I think that's the key when you talk about meshing, the old and the new, right? It's about how do you leverage what both bring to the table, but then how do you show them how you're going to use both of them going forward, right? Because we sit too much in the past in state government sometimes.
Intentionality around sustainability. Making sure it's going to work.
Intentionality is my word.
Yeah, it's a great word. I mean, it's easy to get into the weeds of digitization. What platform should we do this with, and which one should we sunset, and how do we start getting new technology rolled in? But like intentionality around why we're doing it, the strategy of who's helping us get there, and ultimately how we harness all of those talents of all of the incredible people to move us forward. Like that, that's really the conversation. Right, though, like which platform? That's a procurement question. It's simple. It's not easy to go through the procurement process and pick a platform. But as we wrap up, really, I think if we can distill the convo we've had, look, we got to Kansas, we came home.
This is a convo. We're with the secretary in the grounds of the legislature, and it was a convo.
It's a convo.
It was a convo.
It's a convo. a chit chat, if you will.
A little chit chat.
A little chit chat. So I want to tie us up with Scott, the Peanut Gallery, and Samir, not the Peanut Gallery, behind camera. A nugget or two, just leadership nugget. Doesn't have to be technology related, but as you talk to the colleagues at NASCA, what kind of takeaway should they have about how you think about leading? I know we've talked about intentionality. We can run with that. But just give us a nugget to wrap up. I'm putting you on the fly. Yeah?
It's okay. No, that nugget. I think authenticity.
Okay.
And that word means a lot of different things. And some people may say it's, a buzzword or the phase right now. But I would challenge us to say, when you think about the most amazing leader that you've ever worked for or wanted to work for, right? What was it? There was something about them that you were like, man, I'd do anything for that person, right?
Yeah.
Because the authenticity around the work that they led, the passion that they brought to it, and what they themselves put into it to make it successful is a lot of time what drives you to want to be in that space. We need to be authentic leaders. We need to be a little vulnerable at times. We need to be giving leaders in the sense of giving of our time and our talents. We need to stop in the hallway and have that conversation even when we don't have time, right? Send that email, even though it may not really matter, right? To the big scheme of life, but it matters to that person, right? That authentic self, the why you do it, the passion for what keeps you going, even when it's tough, even when it's ugly, even when every battle seems to be lost sometimes in the work that we do, or there's little understanding for what all of our team has to do to keep state government working, right?
Yep.
When we are authentic, when we lead with that authenticity, when we bring our true selves into those roles, you can get your teams to come along with you. You can get your teams to lead themselves differently because you create space for them to bring their authentic self and their passion for the work that we do to the forefront. That's it.
I'm supposed to wrap that up, and you did it nicely. So what I will say is thank you for this. This has been a conversation, not a convo, with the Secretary of Administration for the state of Kansas, Dr. DeAngela Burns-Wallace. Been an awesome time here in Topeka, Kansas, and I appreciate you having us.
Yeah, well, thank you, and you guys are all welcome. Topeka's a fun place to come visit, probably in the summer or fall.
It's beautiful now. We're going to kick it back over to Lexington, Kentucky, to the NASGA team. Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Ace and Secretary Burns-Wallace, for the conversation around digital government. You raised many important components around how states, and especially state chief administrators, can build and expand automation and augmentation. I'm Pam Goins, Executive Director here at NASGA, bringing you a short set of key takeaways from today's discussion. First, states should focus on access, opportunities, and success measures when determining platforms and implementation for citizens. Information and services should be available anytime, anywhere, and on any platform or device. When first brainstorming new techniques and practices, consider how best to improve efficiency and productivity, allow for higher collaboration among various agencies, lower the staff lift, increase citizen usage, and develop better online experiences for the customer. Your goal is to ensure both internal and external value and impact while determining the return on both fiscal and personnel investment. Second, create inclusive environments. You heard Secretary Burns-Wallace say how critical it is to bring perspective and voice to the discussion. This includes both those you serve and those who work with you on each initiative. Ensuring that all voices and perspectives are heard is an important component of any digital government strategy. Find the mechanism to give more people access, meet their needs, and do so through an equity lens. Next, ensure that your structures, resources, policies, and practices are intentional and strategic. There's an expectation that government services are as responsive and personalized as those they engage with in the private sector. So the experience must be well planned and deliberate to meet the needs of the citizen. Take time to brainstorm, investigate, and reimagine how state government operations can provide the information and services needed within the state. As a team, discuss the details to be provided and for which audience to ensure the processes meet those needs. Keep in mind that the North Star is transparency, effective engagement with platforms and data, improved quality of services, and ultimately, increased trust in state government. Another key takeaway from today's conversation is the concept of expanding the definition of team. No longer is your team just those that physically work in your office setting. A team includes cross-agency staff, private sector partners, your customer, the legislature, other political influencers, and your colleagues around the country as well. Begin by gauging your team's perspective on both the need and strategic outcomes of each initiative. Effective teamwork revolves around a set of characteristics that benefit the user in the end. Find those shared values and a common set of principles toward the initiative. Ensure, as a leader, you're building mutual trust among all. Inspire through your own action and set a clear vision for the work. And finally, combine the competencies of your team by collecting skills across the various groups. Finally, focus on the why. As a state chief administrator, you strive to transform government operations so that citizens of your state can benefit. Find those tools that you enhance the lives of those in your state. As DeAngela shared, don't let the technology lead. Start with the why first, then chart your course from there. Build strategic initiatives around the end goal for your customers. Again, I want to thank Secretary DeAngela Burns-Wallace for sharing her thought leadership with NASCA members, and stay tuned for the next video podcast in our Top 10 Priorities for State Chief Administrators series.